Hello and welcome to the Things We Know. I'm Carrie Morin.
And I'm Lisa Callahan. And today, oh my gosh, we have such a fun one. I was prepping for this and already laughing. This one is, I always make these explicit, but this one is definitely not safe for work. So if you are at work and listening to this, I'm going to invite you to put some headphones in, earpods, whatever it might be, because we are going to talk about the difference between not giving a fuck, which is where we live, and not giving a shit.
Yes. Thank you. So when Lisa and I started this pod, we were really clear that we wanted to empower women to leave, leave this part and rest of, sorry, I'm going to say that again. When Lisa and I started this pod, we were clear we wanted to empower women to step into this part of their life and the rest of it with no fucks left. That's actually what we almost named the pod.
Yep.
So, just loving the skin they're in, truly imagining if they weren't there yet, that their lives could be better if they had zero fucks left.
Yeah, we really wanted to call this pod No Fucks Left to Give, and you'd be shocked at how many pods are already called No Fucks Left to Give. The idea stage of this, as we were telling people before we had come up with the title, we were getting lots of great feedback around like, oh my God, yes. Whether it was somebody who was younger and not quite to this stage yet, and they're like, I cannot wait for that moment. Mm-hmm. Or someone our age that was like, God, I feel that, but it's so antithetical to society and how we've grown up. So there was a resistance to owning the idea of having no fucks left to give. And then you came across this amazing article written by Alison Gary, who has a blog called Wardrobe Oxygen, which in itself I love. And it really captured what can be beautiful about not giving a fuck anymore. Do you have the article around that you?
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this was the part I loved all of it, and we will put a link in our Facebook page to it. I don't think it's as easy to put a link. Well, we can put a link in our link tree on Instagram. But my favorite part of it is where she starts to really get into explaining what it is. The difference between not giving a shit and having no fucks to give is another 4-letter word, which is care. C-A-R-E. Not having fucks left to give is when you stop caring what others think. Not giving a shit is when you stop caring. And I wonder if you see the difference. So we'll get into this more, a lot more of this in a bit, but how I like to interpret this is not giving a shit is like giving up, right? Whether it's a goal or a belief in something you care about. It's like, I don't give a shit anymore. And you just retreat, right? But when you finally let go of giving a fuck about what others think, or if you're letting go of perfection or some ideals you set for yourself, you're actually believing you're enough as long as you're ready to just enjoy life as you, right? So that's kind of where I interpret it.
Yeah, I agree. When you first, I think you sent me the link, and so I was reading it, and I thought that makes total sense to me. And there, even without having read that, there is an energy around saying like, I don't give a shit. Like, think about when you say that, I don't give a shit. It means you don't care. Whereas like, I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, there is a strength in that. Whereas the I don't give a shit, it's just like, I'm too fucking tired. Like, I can't. So it totally made sense to me. And it seems funny, but I think there is real knowledge and acceptance to be had around all this.
Yeah. And she goes on to say, and I'm pretty sure she wrote this when it was, beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So she said it's easy to stop giving a shit, especially this year, which was when nobody was seeing each other, right? Like, what's the point? Who's going to see us? Who cares? So she's like, that's where it gets tricky. Not giving a shit can feel freeing at first. And again, these are semantics with words. That's why I really like her distinction, where, it's the, like, if I go to the market in my pajamas, which is so funny because that's nothing I would have done growing up. My parents would have been like, what? But that happens all the time now. And so I don't know if that's the best example. And not with me, but just with everybody, right? Like, you just see, like, kids go to school in pajamas, but like that, just to use an old example, like, you could say, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? I don't even care anymore. I'm not even trying. I'm just going to go. That is either I don't care and I'm empowered, or I have no self-esteem left. So,
Right.
so it's a really, whatever word you're using, I think it's like, am I giving up or am I free of worrying?
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Yeah. And then she goes on to say, but what you find is that when you stop giving a shit, you stop giving a shit about yourself. You don't care about the opinion of others, but you also stop caring about your own. So I think that goes back to the pajama example, right? Like, are you going to the grocery in pajamas because you're depressed, or you're just
Right.
like literally dragging yourself there? Or are you going to the grocery in your pajamas because you're like, it's leisure wear? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. Are you owning it, or are you like so sad? So yeah, that makes total sense to me. I love it.
I'm strutting in
Right.
my,
I am in my
yeah.
pajamas.
And we did a episode kind of that was beautiful about, how you enjoy now sometimes just going to the store without makeup, and like how freeing that is, right? And it's not like, I don't care. It's like, who cares? This is me. And there's
Yeah.
just such a different feel. So yeah, I mean, just to reiterate that, I think that's the distinction that made us want to come here and start this conversation, because it's a great, signal to yourself to say, if I no matter what I choose, is me giving, like, letting that go, is it me not caring at all, like caring about myself, or is it me no longer caring about what others think or what I thought was important? So if it's me not caring, is it an indication of suffering or depression, like you said, and sort of convincing yourself that it's freeing, but then you're just really
Mm.
hiding or retreating? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think if you could really stop and ask yourself, I mean, I'm a big proponent of language anyway, and really noticing what the words you're saying, and what the impact on yourself or other people are. But I think there's a lot to think about and unpack, even though this sounds funny, there's a lot to unpack here. So is it versus the freedom that's possible when you have zero fucks left to give? I think back to the pandemic, and we talked about this in another pod, that, I actually did get up most days and get dressed and do my hair and do my makeup. And there was a part of me that thought people are going to think I give too much shits, and I was like, no, this is what makes me feel good. So if I want to get dressed and put makeup on and do my hair, even though I'm literally sitting around the house and only on Zoom, and people can only see me from, shoulders up, who cares? This is what makes me feel good. That's my freedom. And so it is about stopping holding yourself back from giving a fuck about what other people, whether they approve or not. Like that whole idea of like other people's opinions are none of your business.
I've always loved that about you. I mean, we've talked about habits, and I think the habit of certain types of self-care, the word care is in there, right? Like, it's like giving a shit about yourself is really like what we're saying here. So it's like self-care is giving a shit about yourself. Self-care can also include not giving a fuck whether other people care. It's just,
Totally.
and I love that, because for me, it was freeing to be like, I can work in pajama bottoms. This is awesome. And then at a certain point being like, am I ever going to wear those clothes again? Oh, it's kind of nice to get in those clothes, So it was very freeing. And yes, like when we look back at all the topics so far, I think what we continue to try to celebrate here, and not even try, you and I celebrated anyway, it's why we wanted to do this pod, is that we are in a stage of our lives where we stop trying. Like, that's the other word. Like, the words that are really coming out for me here so far are caring, freedom, and then trying, like the try hard thing. Like trying to be something we're not, or not enough at, and realize we're exactly who we are, and it's more than enough, right? It's perfectly imperfect, because perfection is boring.
Totally.
And like the trying thing, right? So, and we get to start enjoying just like what would it be like if I stopped trying to, be something I'm not, or be more of something, or feel more accepted. So, if you were trying to be like a really good, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I'm trying to be a really good wife here, a really good mom. That's a big one, right? Like the whole thing that happens to just about anyone, even if they don't see it, especially when they don't see it coming, is you start to put on a really good mom would like ... would be the person to volunteer to bring cupcakes, or that would host more play dates. A really good mom would do this. And then, then you start judging yourself and you're really out of your body and out of your head, just trying to like fit some rule because you
Yeah.
give too much fucks about what other people think and what that means about you.
Yeah.
And so when you get to just say, what if I stop trying and I just connect with people and as me and let it be okay that there's certain things I'm not going to do or certain things I don't even care about doing, and then start enjoying that. So if you were to, like, I don't know, kind of rethink that and say, I always have to have a clean house, but I do make people laugh and make them feel warm and welcome. How would that, like, I don't know. I think it's better than focusing on trying to make people like you who were too stupid enough to see your worth.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. It's like you try to make yourself happy and you stop trying to make everyone else happy, because you never really will. And certainly not to whatever like Rubicon you put in your own head. But I mean, I think we want you to care or give a shit about you. We just want you to stop giving a fuck about pleasing other people or impressing other people. And it has always been the mission with this pod. And it strikes me that this topic, I mean, again, we've said this in other pods too. We're so just like deeply honored at women that are younger than us listening and reflecting on how much this pod is landing for them. This topic to me doesn't feel like it has to be when you cross over 50. Like, I think you can learn by just being aware of where you're putting yourself in a place where you're giving a fuck about what other people think. And that can really, you can start feeling this freedom pre-50 for sure. Don't you think?
At any age. Truly, I remember when I was approaching 40 saying, oh, I mean, I may have said this on that episode about about over apologizing, but I just feel like I say sorry less. And it's not like I didn't care if I was hurting people or being a jerk. It was more like, I am so enjoying being more confident and less worried about explaining things, and just a lot more in my body and aware of who I am and how I'm connecting with people. So I agree. I think younger than your 50s, I think women in their 20s and 30s are stepping into that and just saying, I get to be me. I don't have to be anyone else's anything.
Well, and I think the irony is when you stop giving a fuck about what other people think, that's so attractive that you actually find people flocking to you more, right? Yes. Versus when you're so worried about am I wearing the right clothes? Am I all that bullshit? Then people are like, I don't know. I don't want to be around that,
Yeah.
So I think it would be fun, or perhaps helpful, hopefully, if we share a little bit about our own journeys. So how would you sort of touch base on your 40s, but go back farther? How would you describe yourself in terms of this trajectory and what you care about or don't care about?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And I think in the work we do, we hear, not even just in the work we do, if you're paying attention to anything out there, you hear a lot of recovering people pleasers, that term. That would be me. I would say I don't know if it's our generation or being raised Catholic or just the family. I know it wasn't just my family. I know this is, common to a lot of people. But, I was raised by wonderful and well-intentioned young parents who, kind of valued good behavior and politeness. So it was a generation that was, and to have military, right? Like, kids should be seen and not heard. And when people would compliment them on how well we behaved, we'd be like, was there, there an option? Yeah. And all of that sort of translates into, it's really important how people like the impression you make, right? Mm-hmm. Always be respectful. You don't want people to think blank about you, do you? Right. And so this idea was, people are always watching and judging, and that will matter somehow. Like, was there a ledger somewhere? I have no idea. Funny, because that wasn't even a generation with cell phones, like with people videoing you.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that was like, there was some video somewhere in the sky, right? So I spent a lot of time caring about how well I did things, how respectful and articulate I was. I don't remember about it being how I looked, but I'm sure that was part of it. It was Southern California. That part doesn't stand out as much to me, but yeah, you didn't want to say something stupid. You didn't want to appear stupid. You didn't want to appear unprepared or late or, a lot of stuff like that. So I remember just spending a lot of time on that. And basically I interpreted that to mean my worth is evident in how other people find me to be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't for a long time really even think about who I thought I was, because I was in a quest to be a good student and a good person, a good daughter. I don't know, wasn't always a great daughter, but be a good something to others, which is so funny because that's part of what I can't stand out there is the message to women that they're judged by who they are to other people. And so that's why so much of my work with clients is all about like who you are to yourself, because that will spill out into the world and do wonderful things. So I think it's good that I had that because it has really shifted me in it. So I both gave a fuck about pleasing everyone, and I also gave a shit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the part about giving a shit or not, it's interesting because I definitely had some hard chapters in my life where I thought I didn't give a shit anymore. And I was like feeling kind of badass about it. But if I look back, that was just me protecting myself. And so I can see that now, the difference really clearly after we read this article and had this discussion, that trying hard to do really well and be perfect or strive for perfection or bring my A game was a lot of giving a fuck. And this whole idea about it being caring, like I care so much about people in my life that I still have to catch myself caring so much about that. In general, I feel like I've stepped into a place where, and we'll talk about that in a second, but like, I do feel like so much of my life and energy and the only things that got me worried was never like my safety or anything for me. It was always about how I was affecting other people.
So when did the shift happen?
I mean, I think I was a late bloomer in a lot of ways. I think, like intellectually I think I was intelligent, and I, was like, I probably gave the impression again, because I was trying hard that I had my shit together, but I would say finding my own voice, my own heartbeat, and my own passion on things was probably in college. And I'd say relationships are where I always knew I gave a shit, and I always will, of course, like I care about the people I care about. But I think at the end of my life, it will always be how I treat and show up for the people I love. And knowing that's who I am, and that includes my relationship with myself. I think knowing that that's just who I am and that's what I'm about allows me to stop giving a fuck about everything else. Like I used to be the person who would volunteer for this and run this, and some of it's my skill set, some of it I enjoyed doing. And I was really, proud of myself when I realized, hey, I don't have to do this to like be worthy. I was really proud of myself to realize, just because people like my cooking doesn't mean I always have to show up with food. Sometimes it's just gonna be a bottle of wine or just me, and it is okay. So I think the shift has happened, since I've been doing this work, and maybe a little bit before that. When you're parenting kids and really truly want them to feel worthy, you can't just tell them they are. You have to show them what that looks like. And so I think, as is the case with so many things, when you realize you're being watched, you really need to step into it more. I don't want to teach kids that they're not enough unless they bring something, or unless they do a bunch, or unless they give a bunch. I want them to really, sit in, hey, what do I need? Who am I? What matters to me? And the rest, let it go. And just be more of that. Be more of who you are. And I think that's where I've become. And that's a lot of words really to say. The shift was this: when I realized that I needed to include myself in the circle of relationships that I prioritize and treasure, it became super clear all the ways I used to push or stress or strive, and that I could drop those. And then just being me is so much easier. And then it's just so clear who matters to you and what matters.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, you're talking about relationships and that you still give a shit about that. Yeah, of course. And there can still be a sense of the people that love me don't expect me to be anything other than me.
Exactly.
I think there's still a sense of not giving a fuck, right? Because again, it's about outwardness. That the people that love you for who you are, pajamas at the grocery or Prada at the grocery, right? Like it doesn't really, that's a non-negotiable, a non-starter. And so then it's still only about not giving a fuck about what others think.
Right. And that is what I meant was, when I say give a shit about it, like I care about like, how I show up for my friends. but I don't do that at the expense of myself anymore.
Right.
I care about me
so
too.
You're better able to show up for your friends because
Exactly.
you're filling your own cup. I mean, then this is where this comes from, right? This sense of the people pleaser, the yeser, you're so worried that other people are going to hurt their feelings if you say no or you don't do something. No one else has to suffer if you put yourself first. In fact, they will probably flourish because you are more resourced to be of help when you are putting yourself first and not giving a fuck what other people think.
Amen. Okay. Snaps. So what about you? Because I bet anyone who knows you or even listens to you would love to hear this, because I think you're admired for your confidence, or the confidence you exude and the ways you exemplify giving no fucks. So I'd love to hear you share your journey and how you care about, how you care or what you care about and how you go in this place.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like I've been in this space of not giving a fuck for a while without really being aware of it. So I think that's another level of it, like being able to again, take a step back and go, wait, have I been like this for a while? But I don't know, there's some sort of shift. I look back and I can distinctly remember not feeling particularly confident, as I think most girls don't, going through puberty, right? Like we're just a hot mess of emotions and hormones and all that jazz. My parents got divorced when I was in the 7th grade. I moved schools in the 4th grade. So that's kind of a traumatic time. It has been reflected to me both in something I found that I wrote in college, as well as other people have said to me, like they always looked at me as being confident. And I think that's funny because I don't think I always felt that way, but I must have exuded it on some level. And so I think innately, I've just always sort of known that if I could take care of myself, I'm better equipped for everybody else. I didn't have the language for it. I definitely learned that language in studying to be a coach and so forth. And I don't know how I got here because my mom was a ginormous people pleaser. And she didn't really get anything for it. Like, I mean, she took care of lots of things. And there were many times that people took advantage of that for her. And then somebody, like, I was thinking about this, like my uncle was sort of the black sheep of the family, and he got all the props, even though he wasn't taking care of like my grandmother and stuff like that. So I don't know how I got this way, except for the fact that my parents were just the opposite. They were super supportive of both my sister and I. My sister kind of went down the path of being a cheerleader, and my parents would my dad in particular would go to lots of the games. I went down the path of music, and so my parents would come to bars and see my boyfriend's bands playing and things like that. So I had a strong support system around that, I think, for sure. And I really, when I think about when was the first time that I realized what my impact was from a confidence standpoint, then this may sound weird, but really was around my activism around the 2016 election. I had people actually reaching out and saying, what should I do? Tell me what to do. Because I see you and you're so strong in your opinions and you're so willing to put yourself out there and not care what other people think, that, you're so staunchly pro-choice and you're so staunchly pro-gay rights. And of course, 2016 and pro-immigrant, like all that stuff. And I just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that was really, I can distinctly remember thinking like, holy shit, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
But I took the mantle and ran with it because I thought, okay, if that's what you want, that's what I'll do. I was already doing it, so.
Well, we can never help being coaches. Like I'm listening to you and I'm like, what I'm hearing here is a lot of integrity with yourself.
Well, okay. So that's interesting you say that, because you and I were in a meeting the other day for work, and one of the questions was, how do you feel? How do you get in rapport with yourself? And my answer was, I'm in rapport with myself because I know who I am. And so I am in no way, shape, or form ever worried that when I get on my client or my student's map, that I am going to be sucked into their belief system, which is a really great thing to have as a coach, because I'm supposed to be on their map. I'm supposed to put this sounds maybe weird, but like put myself and my beliefs in a box because I need to be for them. Right. And
Right.
so I know I'm in rapport with myself because I know who the fuck I am. And I
Mm.
don't, and so it doesn't matter if I'm coaching someone who doesn't sit in the same space as me. I have no feelings about that. Them, you do you. And I'm not worried that I'm going to go, oh, wait, maybe I should think that. Like, nah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a beautiful reference to something we'll probably come back for a whole episode on. And there, I did it. We did,
Yep.
is
Woohoo.
boundaries, right?
Yeah.
It's like for people who aren't like, who are listening to Lisa or me or anyone who sounds, like they've gotten to a place where they really know who they are, they're just naturally that way. The way to learn that is by, by practicing having a boundary around like, this is where I am and that's where you are. And we don't infringe on each other at all. We can share this space and like know who we are and enjoy each other. Or work together. I love that. We've had a lot of great conversations lately about a lot of different things where we like, do I care? Do I not care? Right? Like what we care about, what we want people to care about how not giving a fuck doesn't mean you don't care. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it goes back to if I am not giving a fuck about what everybody else thinks, then I am taking care of myself first and foremost, which
Mhm.
means I have more of a capacity to show up for the people that I love, the what I would say, the activism, the causes that I care about. I have a full cup and I'm giving from the overflow. When somebody is, my belief is when somebody is worrying too much, it's like they've got a bunch of cups sitting in front of them and they're pouring a little bit into each cup because I'm worried what this person thinks and I'm worried what, and so like they show up to something exhausted and not at all resourced because they've poured themselves in all these little fucking cups.
Yeah.
And so I just think, again, when you can not give a fuck about what other people think, it means you are owning your own power. And then you get to spread that gloriousness all over the place as you see
Yeah.
fit.
That's just reminded me of two things that before we move on to the next part, which is the first is it's not your business what someone thinks about you is
Yep.
the most freeing thing that anyone could have ever told me. Something I was worried about, I don't know, years ago. I remember someone I worked with, and I remember whatever I said started with, God, I would hate for them to think, and like, I'm going to stop you right there. It's not really your business what they think. And it was the best slap in the face I ever received because it like righted me. It shifted me into, you're right. I have no need to spend mental energy. I was probably in my 30s
And no
at the time.
control.
I have no control. You get
Yeah.
to your thoughts are your jurisdiction. Everyone's thoughts. We have no control over that. And their thoughts are also distorted by their own experience. You have actually no responsibility for it. You can come from a loving intention and they may still take it wrong. And I'm not saying, don't repair if you care about that relationship, but I am, or explain it if it's warranted. But what I'm saying is worrying about it or letting that prevent me from doing something I care about is ridiculous. And I'm so glad I learned that a long time ago where I start to feel it. I'm like, even with my own kids, like, it reminds me, I think at some point, my husband's father, I don't get to call my father-in-law because he passed away before we married, but I did know him. But he used to say to my sister-in-law's daughter, when she was mad at her mom, he's like, you can think whatever you want. You just can't say it. I don't know why that reminds me of that. Like you can hate me. I don't like it really does. It's not going to stop me from doing what I do. Right. And I do love that. I love that feeling that when I am free of what anyone else thinks, I have so much more time and energy, like you said, to care about the things I care about. And the other thing that just came up for me is this idea that like I'm known as a very thoughtful person. I can anticipate people's needs. I can be thoughtful. I can be generous. And I, for so long, thought I had to get rid of that part of me to stop caring about what other people think, right? And I had to like learn how to dissect what was I doing because I felt like I needed to because I wasn't enough or I wouldn't be doing enough otherwise. And what was I just purely just like, what is just naturally me and an extension of that love that I want to show someone. And that just asking that question, boom, just like immediately like half of it fell away and it was so clear. And it's the difference between living in your head and living in your heart. When you're in your head, there's like, oh, I should, I wonder if I should, I wonder if I should, versus drop in, hand on my heart, like, you know what I feel like doing for her right now? I just want to give her like a little text and just let her know what I'm thinking. And it is always such a grounded, not urgent feeling. It's just a knowing. So,
An abundance versus a lack.
Yes.
The funny thing about other people's opinions are none of your business, or what other people think about you is none of your business. I only recently heard that, and I swear to God, I thought RuPaul said it. It's like, it said before RuPaul. I don't know why. That was the first time I saw that. I saw it, I think, on RuPaul's Drag Race or something. I was like, that is brilliant.
I wish that I worked with RuPaul in my 30s, but I think it was some other brilliant person I worked with at a shelter in Nashville.
I'm sticking with RuPaul though.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, we all get to, like, I don't know if some of the things that I quote are originally from that person, but that's the person who said it, right?
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
So our coaching training has really helped us learn how to facilitate and witness and empower our clients, our students, mostly women. But we both do coach men and parent with men and have men in our lives. But it's about helping them really step into finally letting go of all the fucks that used to keep them stuck. Because that's really where the stuck point is, don't you think?
Oh, totally. Fuck yes. And it's beautiful. It's like one of the things, one of the reasons we started, this pod, of course, like we keep saying, because in isolation, which is so many of the women we coach, they're isolated because so many of us we're working from home, or we're just busy with our lives and our families' lives. So many women get to this stage of their life exhausted, right? And that's what I see with my clients. That's what I see with the people we coach at work. I'm sure you see this with your own clients. Really successful people still can be very exhausted if they're, and they think it's from parenting. They think it's from health reasons. Sometimes it is also. But my belief is that having so many fucks that you're carrying around, it just gets heavy on your heart. It gets draining when you're like, that is a weight you're holding when you have the responsibility of pleasing so many people, or a level of yourself that's impossible to please. Right. So I think intentions are tricky because they become shoulds, and that kind of leads to the things like shame and halts any growth. And that's where we have to step in as coaches and really facilitate how to let go of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally crazy making for me to watch women sort of bury themselves under all these ideal perfection ways of being a woman in the world, right? Even going back to the sort of like, we can have everything, and it's being given to them from the outside, right? It's conditioning. It's not a belief that comes from inside. If it's a belief that comes from inside that I could do anything I want, like, great, go you. But if you're buried under this, like, I'm not doing enough, that can be really, it's crazy making for me, And so again, I want to go back to like, this is a big part of the work we do with people around identity and beliefs. And we have to, I think I say this a lot. One of the things I love about being a coach is I get to fly at 30,000 feet when you're in the weeds. And to me, it's like somebody will, I can't, I should, and I'm like, okay, well, I get you. I hear you. Let's acknowledge that this is your belief right now because your experience has shown you this. And so this is your belief. But why don't we have a new experience where you don't give a fuck? And now you can grow a new belief system around that.
Oh, yeah. A lot of my favorite things that I do when I'm coaching is around identity and belief, because we take so much of that from our childhood. That's just normal. We all do it. We all, kind of decide who we are in the world based on what we have knowledge of at that time. And it's often very limited. And I think that's the thing that's most fun to help people realize is, there's like a 5-year-old deciding all this for you. That's got to be exhausting,
Poor 5-year-old.
Yeah. But also it's just this, are those your beliefs, or did you borrow them, or did you accidentally just mimic them? And what's true? What do you want for you? And is this who you are? And has anyone ever asked you that before? Right. So I think those are I think we can get very caught up in our culture of looking around and going, they look like they care about this, I should too.
Yep.
And I don't I don't even mean to say that they shouldn't care about it. That might really be who they are. Like
Right.
some people are just meant to lead and step in and run things. Let them. If that's like, don't force yourself to do things, right?
Right.
I think about, there's the working moms who feel so guilty that they can't help with something on a team or a school or a dance, something. And then there's the moms that do, and there's all these assumptive things happening that are coming from these limiting beliefs about ourselves. Like, oh,
Yep.
I can't do everything, or I should do everything. And I think really putting that down and letting people really just, say I'm enough, even if I can't participate in that. And, I'll send money or send love. And
Well, I mean,
really just coexist that way.
I don't know if this is one of your favorite questions around this, but mine is always, whose voice is that? Right. And more often than not, it's my parents, it's my mom, we're moms. So we know, we've already said we're fucking up our kids. We get that. But sometimes they say it's my voice. And then that's a whole nother thing to unpack. Okay, tell me more about that, because it's easier to almost work through if you go, oh yeah, that's my mom's belief, or that's what society has told me. Like you can almost untangle that a little easier than when it's like, it's my belief. And I can imagine that coming up. You talked about working moms. Well, right, then the moms that stay at home also don't feel enough because they think, oh, I'm supposed to be working too. And then it's all this,
or they get resentful because they're running all this stuff in the volunteer space, right?
Right.
And I mean, and that's not just there. It can be anything, like the person in the friend group who feels like they're doing more to get people together, or the family member who's always the one that helps the parent. There's a lot of that where if you're really coming from a genuine place and understanding that everyone's going to look different if they're really truly not striving to please everyone else. And if there's a lot of love there, everyone's going to look different. And it's an opportunity to communicate about that. I think to go back to what you just said, when they're like, it's my voice, that's where it's really fun to say, well, what part of you is saying that? Right. Because I believe, and I know you do too, it's a lot of, there's a lot of different types of, systems of like family systems, parts work and things like out there. But the idea being that we have a lot of parts. We have that little inner critic that's always going to be like, no, 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 no. And then we've got that brave part of us and the creative part of us. And so what's fun for me to do with that is like, what part of you is saying that? And is there another part of you that disagrees or knows better? Right. Yeah. And so it's a fun way to shift into, how do you stop listening to that little fear voice inside and kind of comfort it so that you can move forward? Yeah,
I love that. So there's some tips for letting go of giving a fuck that came from this article as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to start?
Well, I like this because we were just talking about confidence, and I think there's different kinds of confidence, right? Because you came off as confident, but you weren't always, right? So I love this article. It says that they often say the most stylish thing you can wear is confidence, but confidence can be false, which reminds me of something. But she goes on to say that's something you learn when you become a grown-ass woman. You can likely recall those times you felt confident as fuck, but in fact, you were running on fury or on vodka, on power, on fear, and often on fumes.
Cheers.
With those life experiences that justify four-letter words, you can begin to learn the most stylish thing is not confidence, but self-care. I love that. And not because confidence is definitely meaning those things, but just to know what kind of, like, what's fueling your confidence. I've always said to my kids, there are a lot of confident, insecure people. They're just good at something. They're good at something, and that's what they lean into. And they're so afraid that you'll look behind the curtain and see that there's a lot there that they're worried about and afraid of, right?
I feel like I can see those people though, right? When it's the bravado, it's pretty obvious. I think that's my opinion. I mean, I've known a lot of people in my life that I'm like, okay, it's kind of goes to the lady doth protest too much, if they're just like out there, look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm like, yeah, you're not really that confident, because I do think true confidence comes in quietly.
I do too. But I think there is a subtle version of this though, that especially like, women who are hard on themselves, they won't look too deeply and they'll compare themselves to these people. But there's a subtle version of somebody who is taking care of everything else so beautifully, but you have no idea how much she's shitting on herself or not taking care of herself or not even checking in with herself. And so I agree. Those ones that are just so obvious.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see, but I think you're trained to see this in anyone, but I think
True.
some people won't always see that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I like that. I love that it's self-care is going to exude the natural confidence that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of ours sent, we haven't even talked about this, but she sent something to us about marriage, and it was about saying, you know, women often don't care enough for themselves. And I gotta say, like, that is something I can look back on. I have always put myself first, but where I shifted was I used to feel bad about that, you know, but I can remember even when Liam was a baby, like I was just really like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to work out, I'm going to take a shower. Like I want to get all this done now, you know, and Darren might be like, well, why don't you stay in bed? And I'm like, nope, this is me. I'm doing this first, you know, because then I am better equipped to take care of a baby and a house and all those things back in the day.
There's a coach, Annie Lala, who talked about this. It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's selfing. It's self-love. It's doing the selfing first so that you can. And this idea, like I was raised to emulate selfless women, is what will lead you to all that stuff. So what you're describing is this exact, this exact thing.
Selfing. I love that.
Selfing.
That's awesome. The part of the article I really identified with is a person who has no fucks left to give. I don't know why, but it makes me laugh every time I say it. Yeah. Has no fucks left to give is in fact a very caring person. It's just a person who doesn't waste their time on what doesn't matter. I think that is it. I know. I was gonna say that is the mic drop. That's the nut. Right.
Yes, I love that line. I think that's one I underlined. Was like, this is it. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care very much about only the things that matter.
Yeah.
I love that. And how freeing is that? And how fun is that when you get to stop worrying about the dumb stuff?
I mean, it does open up time and headspace. It just does, you know, because, and I will say this too, because I think anything like this is, even as you learn it, it doesn't mean you don't fall back into patterns, right? And so I say this a lot to my clients, just because you've come to this new knowing doesn't mean you're not going to fall back into old patterns. You're going to, when something new happens, when you get triggered in some sort of way, and that's okay. The success comes from getting yourself out of it again and not languishing in it. So, I mean, there's definitely going to be times where you're going to find yourself giving a fuck. And then you're like, oh, fuck, God, that's not what no. And that's okay. That's good. You're learning. Hooray.
Oh, I just went through this last week, as you know. So it's good. It's good where you find out, why am I doing this? Oh, there's something important happening.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's time for songs.
It's time for lyrics. Okay. So the funny thing, this is so perfect because we've got a little announcement here as well. But the theme song, which I don't know that we've ever presenced, but the theme song for the pod was actually written by my daughter, Charlotte. So it's Damage. You can find it on Spotify, Charlotte Callahan. And you don't get to hear her sing because it's obviously we just wanted the lyrics. But right around the time we started recording this pod, Charlotte shared with me a song by amazing woman named Charlie XCX. Most of you might know her because she sang on Iggy Azalea's whatever the fuck song she was popular for back in the day. But she is her own artist and she's very cool. She actually is British but lives here in Glendale. Anyways, this song is called What You Think About Me. And the lyrics, full disclosure, is going to be a lot of fucks here, but the lyrics are, I don't give a fuck what you think about me. I don't give a fuck about the things that you do. I don't give a fuck what you think about me, what you think about me. So yeah, fuck you. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. No, I don't give a fuck about the things that you do. I don't give a fuck about what you think about me. So what you think about me. So yeah. And then she goes, fuck you. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I knew her. Because as much as I want Charlotte to be our theme song, like this is the perfect theme song for this fucking pod.
And can you share, really, before we get to this fun announcement, can you share what you learned about that song? Because it wasn't just her waking up and being like, middle finger, everybody.
Yeah, I will say this is my opinion. I don't know this to be true, but what's interesting about this song was when I first heard it, you think about it, it sounds like she's talking about a boy, like I don't give a fuck. what you think about me. And then I listen to it a lot because I really, really like this song. And it's, I don't know about you, but a song that says fuck in it, like, is an anger power song. Like, I have so many songs in my playlist that have fuck in them. And I know that should probably really shocking to most of you, but I kept listening to this one line that says, it's hard. Let me see if I can find it, because I didn't save this piece. We can always shorten this. Hold on. There we go. Nope. Hope I don't want to hear it. Sorry, Charlie. Oh, come on. So it says, when the lights are out and I feel a little low, that's when your noise is the cruelest. When I really catch your bullets, I try to breathe it out because I don't want it to hurt. It makes it harder when my name's on your shirt. And that really kept striking me, like, what is she talking? Why is her boyfriend wearing her name on her shirt? And then all of a sudden one day it just hit me. I think she's talking about the feedback she gets on social media from fans. So her name's on their shirt because they're wearing a Charlie XCX concert t-shirt. And somehow all of a sudden that song became sadder to me. Because it just speaks to, she's very open about having anxiety and what she went through, being, in quarantine during the pandemic, like we all were, and being stuck in her house and so forth. She recorded an amazing album during that time. But, you think about people who are famous and that, they're just regaled with people loving them. And in this day and age, people are really mean. And so I think it would take an extra level, and she's not very old. I mean, she's probably late 20s, early 30s, if that, to really be like, you are my fans and you're fucking me. Like, it just kills me every time I listen to it.
Love that. But you're right. It is sad. And it is really wonderful when an artist like Miley Cyrus can write a song about, like, I have no fucks left. Like, this is about me now. It's not about you. And I do love that. So this is our 15th episode.
What?
So to celebrate that, Lisa did a really cool thing. She put all of our episode theme songs into a Spotify playlist for you to enjoy. So we are going to share a link in our Instagram and our Facebook pages, and you can search for it on Spotify with the very clever title, The Things We Know Playlist. Thank you, Lisa.
You're so welcome. It's been fun. And so when you go in, you'll see it's our logo, but it's the actual photo that was taken that was turned into such. So it's a beautiful photo by Diana Lundeen that was then turned into amazing artwork by Joe Mills. So you should be able to find it easily. And each week, as we do a new episode, I'm going to add the song. So right now you're going to hear the songs up until episode 15. So the final song will be the Charlie XCX song, and it starts with Charlotte's song Damage. But each week I will add, on Tuesday morning, I will add the song of that week to the playlist. So it will grow and grow and grow. And we already have recorded so many pods and we have so many good songs. So I cannot wait for you guys to watch this grow. All you have to do, like here, is when you go in, you'll just heart it, favorite, and then as it grows, you will get to see it grow as well.
I'm so excited. We have fun songs.
Yeah.
This has been such a fun topic and a dialogue. I hope it gets everybody listening, noticing where you could care less about the things that don't matter, and give yourself permission to just fully embrace what does.
Yes. And as always, we want to thank you listeners for actually giving a shit. And listening and having fun with us today, and all the feedback you give us. So thank you very much.
Yes. And if you're enjoying listening to The Things We Know, yay, that makes us really happy. And we're so happy to have you here with us. And please consider following The Things We Know pod by clicking on the plus sign or the follow button wherever you listen to podcasts.
And if you like today's episode and you're like, holy shit, I know people that need to like give less fucks, please forward it to someone you think might enjoy it and listen. Again, maybe you know somebody, maybe you're listening. It's like, oh my God, I need to send this to my sister. Like, please share.
Awesome. All right. So long, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.